What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back doing another preview video today. This one is going to be France versus Georgia. For anyone who hasn't seen these preview videos before, what we do, of course, is chuck on a game of Rugby 20 in the background of the teams that are going to be playing, and then over the top we talk about the official teams that have been announced to play in this game in real life, and we go over who we think might do well, who we think might do badly. Finally, we give a score prediction for the game. It's going to be a great one. This is going to be the final game of the weekend. Let's get this game kicked off and underway. Alright, Abzan Zadze is going to get us kicked off. We'll try and kick it deep because Georgia in this game, not necessarily the best. So, France versus Georgia. This will be a fun game. I was expecting this to go a little bit of a different way. Georgia, of course, we haven't really seen a lot of in terms of Northern Hemisphere rugby for a little while now, so it'll be interesting to see just quite what level they're still at. Who should we start off with? Let's start off talking about France first. So France last week had a relatively good game against Argentina. It was a game I thought they were going to win by more, but Argentina really stepped up in that game, and France found a lot of pressures that I don't think they were quite ready for. They went in with a pretty top tier team against a team that was getting beaten by the likes of New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. Everyone was beating Argentina and quite comfortably, to be honest. So France had a bit of a surprise to go in with such a top tier team and not come away with a massive amount of points over the top of Argentina, but that was a really, really good game from Argentina. France will have found a couple of areas they need to work on, but ultimately I think they had a really good game. I think their defensive setup was really good. Sean Edwards will be very, very happy with some of that French setup and just being able to stop tries and managing to get under the skin of some of the Argentinians. The discipline for them just really letting them down, and France managing to hold out as well as they can do. So going into this game, let's check out the team they've announced to play Georgia. Now, Georgia are very much a tier 2 nation. I was expecting them to sort of hack out their team a little bit here and put on maybe a bit of a B team, test out that depth of squad. However, they haven't gone for that. So looking at the front row then, we'll pretty much have the same front row we had against Argentina. We've got Cyril Bay and Julien Marchand. However, we've now got Antonio coming in that tight head position. I love Antonio. I think he's fantastic. He's not necessarily the best rugby player in terms of, sort of actual like handling skills and different things like that. He is, however, a giant man. I believe they call him like the fridge or the refrigerator over in France. And they're not messing around. He's a big boy. He's going to get involved with those scrums a lot. We know how big the Georgians are in terms of their forwards. England have flown them out to use them as scrum practice in the past before because Georgians are so good. South Africa came up against them before the Lions, and they struggled against the Georgian scrum as well in that first half, even into the second half, to be honest. So definitely big work. You need the big boys on. I think this is the right way to go. In terms of the lock departments, we see Woki moving into that number 4 shirt along with Taufai Fanua in the 5 shirt. So a couple of switches around here, which is nice to see. Now, I didn't actually know Woki could play lock. I thought he was a be-all, end-all sort of 6-7 flanker position. So nice to see him expanding that out if he can play him. And he's very good in terms of like lineouts and stuff anyway, so no reason he couldn't play lock. So looking forward to seeing that. And Taufai Fanua, of course, the 9'10" giant man that is on the field for them. I'm sure the lineout situation will be good. Georgian lineout, not typically the best in terms of the sort of, the top tier rugby. So this will be an area France will be looking to dominate. So I think having them in is probably a good move. In that back row, we have Jalanche is moving to the 6 shirts now, rather than Kos. Makalou will take over in 7, and Gregory Aldrit will move into that 8 shirt. So there's definitely been some switching round of this team. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a weaker team than what played Argentina, but there's been quite a few switches. Jalanche, of course, can play either or. It's interesting that Dupont is also going to still retain that captaincy. Of course, in the summer series we saw Jalanche playing so much of that captaincy role. Gregory Aldrit didn't have the biggest impact actually going on from the bench last week. Thought he might do a little bit more, but he needs a bit of time to get going. Nice to see him back in that shirt. Still missing people like Charles Olivon and stuff, so I think that's not terribly a bad move. I think it's also quite a nice setup here to have Woki, Taufai Fanua, and also now Makalou is also willing to get involved in that line out. Triple jumper threat in that line out against a team that does struggle in the line out a little bit, especially especially as well with jackal rates of both Woki and Makalu. Really, really good. Really looking forward to see how those boys get on. It's a very strong 1-8. I think it's going to work out well for them. In terms of the backs, Dupont, as we said, are going to take over that captaincy role, and Jalibert is going to remain in charge of the that 10 shirt. So this was something they tested last week, was Mathieu Jalibert and Entermac in the 10-12 setup. So moving more towards like an England style now. They used to have the George, Fordo and Farrell. They're doing the same thing. 2 fly halves in. Entermac, of course, very able to play in that centre channel when he needs to. So it didn't work terribly. I can't say there was any real over-the-top bonuses I saw by having them both on, as opposed to someone like having like Dante on at the same time, or having like a Vaca Tower in that 13 and having Fiku at 12. There was no real added bonus. I thought having a second distributor would have meant they would have played a little bit more with the ball in hand and probably influenced the backs a bit more. Look, trying to remember now from over a week now, it's difficult to remember back to, but I don't think there was too much back inclusion from the French team. They definitely wanted to try and overpower the Argentinian side, but against a team like Georgia, probably got more room, so it's probably worth having a double distributor. So, as we mentioned in that centre, of course, Entermac in that centre channel, as we've already gone over, and Fiku will be finishing off in that outside centre. So, Dante will probably be remaining on the bench again, and of course, still no Vaca Tower in that side. However, Fiku doing his job, had some good defensive work last week against Argentina, and will probably be making the most of it again this week. And then finally, the back three. On the left wing, we have Lebel, who isn't a name I know particularly well, Damien Penaud on the right wing, and Jaminet in that fullback position, who I thought had a good game, minus the kicking to posts. He did struggle a little bit with terms of percentage kicking. There were some fantastic stats thrown around during the game, like he's missed 1 kick in the entire year, and then he went on to miss like 3 kicks in that game. So I'm sure he will have worked on that, and if it doesn't go well, something that I think, also useful for the French team, having 3 kickers on in Jalibert, Entermac and Jaminet, I think Dupont would probably give kicking to posts as well, is if someone's going to miss 2 kicks, I think it's probably time to switch kickers rather than trying to force them to keep going. You got the talent on the pitch, so you might as well stick with it. And Damien Penaud as well, so good into that high ball. So I think having all these big kickers in, I can expect in this game we might see a little bit more kicking than a lot of people will be expecting, up and unders and stuff, and getting people like Damien Penaud under the ball. As we go over for a final try here with Georgia, I'm doing really well in the background here. Georgia are playing well, better than normal. We'll slowly move in towards half-time, so we might as well talk about the French substitutions. So a lot of these people will have been people that played last week and have pretty much made the switch out. That seems to be the way that France has gone here. So starting off in the front, Mao Vaca, Gross and Bamba going to be coming in there at some point in that second half. And to be honest, the French front row held up well against that Argentinian scrum last week. So they won't be rushing necessarily to bring these lads on. I imagine this could be maybe even a 55-60 minutes. Maybe they'll be looking to save people like Cyril Bay and Marchand for some of the games they've got coming up in the future, including that New Zealand game. I can't wait for that. That's going to be a great game. So they might bring on a couple of replacements slightly earlier, but I feel like Antonio might stay on a little bit longer, just to give those boys a bit of an extra shot at trying to avoid injury leading into that game next week. In terms of the rest of the forwards, then we have Flamand, Willemse and Kroos. So again, they're going for the 6-2 split. This is what we saw against Argentina as well. They like going for the 6-2 split. Now, it seems to be becoming a little bit more fashionable now in the world of rugby to have that 6-2 split when you're playing some of the Southern Hemisphere teams, because they know how forwards-based they are, and it's not a terrible move, to be fair. Again, helps you avoid injury going towards that New Zealand game, as well as just reinforcing your own scrum, reinforcing your own line-out, giving you the platform to actually release more backs from. And if you're playing a lot of that sort of 40-50 minutes of hard forward work, we saw what happened in the Autumn Nation Series last year. After about 50 minutes of very hardcore play for some of these Georgian forwards, they do begin to tire. We saw it open up, I think, back now to the Georgia-Wales game, where they put on a very B-team Wales, and they just didn't release the backs at all for the first 60 minutes. And around that 60-minute marker, you could see the Georgian forwards absolutely puffing air out, trying to get anything in. So I don't think this is a bad move at all, and there's a great deal of skill involved in there. Willemse and Flamand both playing very well last week, and Kroos, of course, will come on. Can come in at 6, and you might see Jalanche move to 8, or you might see a direct swap there. So you've also got the potential for other people to move around. Woki can also move back to flanker if you need him to. Makalu can move places as well. There's a lot of malleability in that forward pack. I think that's going to work well for them. And then just to finish off in the finishes in terms of the backs, we have, of course, Lusu and Dante, who I thought had a really nice impact. I really like him. I haven't seen a lot from him. We only really heard about him sort of a year or bit ago for me personally, but I think he's doing really nice work. I believe he can play both centres. I mainly see him come on at 12 out of everywhere, but I was not sure if that's just because you have other people like Vakatao and other people in Fiku who like playing that outside centre channel more, but I believe he can play both centre channels, and he's a hard man to stop once he gets going. But in terms of a 1-23, this is a big French team. I really thought they might sort of I don't know, not necessarily put a B team on against Georgia. It's not really worth putting on the B team, but definitely try and nullify their team down a little bit just to avoid injuries. They've given Georgia the respect they probably deserve. There's a lot of very talented people in a Georgian team. But it's going to be a hard-fought victory if Georgia do manage to come away with this one. But it's nice to see that France are putting out a full team against Georgia. Speaking of who, let's talk about this Georgian team. So like I said, we haven't really seen them since the Autumn Nations for me personally. They may have played other games along the way, which I managed to catch in the UK. In terms of trying to find any of these sort of tier 2 games televised is really difficult. We see it with like Fiji, Uruguay, Spain, Portugal. All those teams were playing last week. I couldn't find any way to watch them in any sort of capacity. So Georgia not having the best Autumn Nation series is probably one I have to refer back to. I believe they lost every game. In fact, I think they lost to Fiji as well. So it's a real shame for them because there's definitely a good little range of talented players in this Georgian team. But again, there's a financial backing in there. They're very much a tier 2 nation. Playing some of these bigger tier 1 nations is tough. But they certainly take the game to them. We saw that game against South Africa before the Lions series went on. And they went for that game. They didn't lose by a great deal. And they're up to about 60 minutes. I believe they were drawing up until about 60 minutes of that game. And they're the world champion. So, I don't think that you can take too much away from Georgia. They will take the game to you. And this will be a hard-fought victory if France manage to come away with this one as well. So checking out the team. I'm probably going to know a lot more of the starting 15, so we'll start off with the forwards. Gigiashvili and Mamukiashvili will be doing in that front row along with Melukidze, which is a name I'm not going to know too much about. However, Gigiashvili and Mamukiashvili, again, two big staples in this Georgian team. Big boys, love getting in there. I always remember Mamukiashvili because of that big bald head as he just smashes his way through in terms of rucks. He loves getting involved, so it'll be nice to see him. In the lock department, we've got Kurdikovshli. Unfortunately, I'm going to butcher some names, so I really apologise for any of these names I get completely wrong. And Mikataudze. So again, a couple of names there, not super known to me. And then in that back row, then Saginadze, Shinzukadze, and Gorgadze. So Gorgadze, I always get mixed up with Giorgadze, who is in there quite a few times as well. They do play very different positions though. So Gorgadze, again, a very good runner with the ball in hand. He says that we see France with a very good ball in hand try in the background here. But as a 1-8, again, it's difficult for me to know a great deal about the Georgian team, but there's a couple of big names in there. They all look like big boys, and I'm sure they'll give this French scrum a tough old game. I think that scrum could be a big point of contention, especially when you get into that second half, just how much they hold up. In terms of the backs, there'll be a few more names I know in here. Now, the backs tend to be more where I have a bit more knowledge on. So, Lobjanidze and Abzanzadze. Again, this is a bit more of a staple now for the Georgian team. They tend to have pretty much this as the main setup, I would say. There's occasionally some swaps at scrum half, but both of these players are very talented. In terms of distribution, Georgia don't necessarily get the ball out of the rucks very slowly at all, so it's nice to see. The centre partnership, Sharakadze as the captain, and Kveladzadze is a name I don't know super well, but Sharakadze is certainly a very good player. Tordua will be taking over on that left wing, Tabuzadze on the right wing, and Ninia Yashvili in that full-back position. So it's a pretty decent backline, to be fair. They'll definitely wanting to give this game a good go. And then finally, I'll check on the bench for you guys here. Not a lot of names there for me, unfortunately, that I'll know. Tepladze is probably the only one I'll be able to talk about there. So, in terms of a score prediction then for me, the French team certainly bringing in a bigger team here. I'm going to call for a French win. By how much is a very difficult call. I think if it gets towards that second half and France begin to dominate, we'll see this game open up. So I'm going to call France to win by 20 24, I think I'm going to say. I think once those backs get released, we might see France take full advantage and make the most of this game. But of course, guys, I am but one man on the internet talking nonsense about rugby. So if you want to drop down in the comments who you think will win, who you think we should watch out for, who you're really excited to see, make sure you go ahead and do that. And if you are looking forward to seeing any more of these videos, make sure you subscribe just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out on the channel. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.